When is the last time you read a book that had a merman in it? Not a mermaid, but a muscular merman. As promised, today we are reviewing the book Ellis and the Hidden Cave, written by mother and son duo Cerise and Araya Murphy. Ellis and the Hidden Cave is an early reader chapter book. It contains 6 chapters. So this book wasn't on my radar at all. In fact, I was at I See Me Bookstore, an African American children's bookstore here in St. Louis, when I was checking out with the 6 books that were on my list, when I looked beyond the cashier and I saw Ellis and the Hidden Cave. The cover was extremely appealing with the bright colors, the various shades of aqua, and of course, a young black boy with taking the lead underwater with his sister in tow, and the characters were not ambiguous at all. They were definitely African American, and there was no mistaking it. It wasn't like they just taken a character and painted the character brown. So without any prior knowledge of the book or the author, I went ahead and purchased the book, and I look forward to reading it and doing a review about it. So let's dive into chapter 1. Chapter 1 opens to a soccer scene at recess, and you're introduced to all of these different characters that are born and die all on page 1. And by die, I mean you're introduced to them on page 1, and then you just never hear from them or about them again. So in the first chapter on the first page, I'm introduced to Nate Weaver, Max Washington, Kevin Taylor, and Omar Mendez. And of course our protagonist, Ellis Monroe. So the whole time I'm reading chapter 1, I'm trying to figure out, how does this soccer game play into an underwater hidden cave? But I'm like, okay, this is probably very creative and I just need to push through, and I'm sure the author will make the connection at some point. So with the soccer game, there's an altercation between the kids and they get into a shoving match. In a nutshell, chapter 1 talks about bullying, the effects of bullying, and how you need to stand up for yourself. But I was unable to find where it was connected to our story at all. The soccer game, the shoving match, the interaction with the principal, the phone calls, it had nothing to do with the rest of the story. It didn't further the story or add to it. And I was still the entire time carrying those names with me, trying to figure out how this would connect back to these characters, because obviously they were important. They had first and last names. So moving past chapter 1, I really wanted to like the book. I really did. But I started to see a pattern in the text where many of the sentences started with and or but or other conjunctions and prepositions, which were a little hard to get past. So we finally get to the part where we discovered that Ellis and his family, his dad, Dr. Monroe, is an archaeologist, and the family and Ellis's best friend, Toro, they're all going to India because he's going to study some ancient Indian ruins. So I was surprised to see all of that development around the soccer game that doesn't play into the actual story. But then I get to a paragraph that talks about how Ellis, his sister Freddie, and best friend Toro devised a plan to foil the bugaboils, these trolls that are hiding at their school. Their attempt, or the troll's sole mission, is to prevent learning at the school. So Ellis' sister and friend devised a plan to foil the troll's attempt and to continue learning at the school. But that was only a paragraph. I would have loved to see that concept developed and even put in a prologue, since this is a series, a prologue to put into each book of the series. Like mini series, I should be able to pick up a book, even if it is out of order, and still understand who the players are and what's going on. So Ellis has this special mark on his hand that denotes him as a stone keeper. There's also a magic mirror involved. So again, I bought the book based on the cover alone, and I really, really wanted to like this book. I mean, I was rooting for this book.
I was
And that's when it happened. In chapter 2, I came across the first sentence fragment. Not only are there the remains of the city you see here, is not a complete sentence, but there it was on the page, dressed up like a complete sentence, and it bothered the heck out of me. For that alone, I wanted to throw the whole book away, but we pressed forward. Then it happened again in chapter 4. I think it was, "Except this is a lot scarier," was the phrase, and it was listed like it was a complete sentence, and I was over it by that point. It was exactly like anticipating scrambled eggs and getting it in your mouth and crunching down on a shell. It ruins the whole experience. So the kids are pulled into a whole underwater scene. There's an underwater world. And this becomes my favorite part of the book. They meet a very interesting character, the merman. It was a purple merman with a full braided beard. From the waist up, he was totally human, and from the waist down, he had a fin, so merman. But in the book, he was referred to time and time again as a blue giant. So I was a little confused there. So I love the adventure in the underwater cave and the interactions that Ellis and Toro and his sister Freddie have with the bugaballs, the trolls, and with them meeting the blue giant, or the purple merman, I say. However, due to the structure of the story and the grammatical and punctuational errors, it's a hard no for me. So as much as I love seeing African Americans represented in children's books, representation will never trump accuracy or proper development of a story. And that's why this was so disappointing to me, actually, because I really was hoping that this was going to be a really great chapter book that I could recommend. So my hope is that maybe the author will release a revised version of the story and move forward in it. I could understand what she was trying to do, and I love the concept of the story, but the story itself, not so much. And mainly because our audience, or the group of people that the book is geared toward, is the most vulnerable. They're at a point in time where they are learning how to draft a paper or to construct a paragraph and learning how to properly formulate a sentence. So to recommend a book that doesn't have those type of qualities in it would be egregious on my part. However, it is available. If you have read the book or you're familiar with the book, then sound off in the comments, because I would love to know your thoughts. So again, I love that this was a mommy-son project. I'm sure Araya Murphy received a huge education on the publishing process with writing with his mom and producing this book. Cerise Murphy is the author of a series of sci-fi books called The Seer. She's also written Ellis and the Magic Mirror. Thank you so much for watching. If you like these reviews, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and also click the bell so that you're alerted the next time I upload a video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.